All right. What's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into the channel. My name is Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary. Today is December 26th, 2024, and it is about 3 p.m. where I'm at right now, doing our daily reading of the news, which we will be continuing into 2025. So rock with your boy, come in and drop articles. Let me know what you think about what's happening in the world today, and I'm going to drop my 2 cents as well, reading every comment as well. So shout out to Avery Adams. Merry Christmas to you. We missed you on the Christmas live stream, and I hope you have a happy new year as well. And shout out to everybody else who will be joining later. Now, let's get into the meat and potatoes of what we're here to talk about today. As I say in every video, I'm from Louisiana, the great state of Louisiana, where we've brought you great things like lynching, segregation, black poverty, urban decay, all sorts of wicked shit. 18-year-olds being able to walk around with guns in their pockets with no background checks. Yes, the great state of Louisiana. All right. Avery says, this is my morning news while I work. Well, shout out to you while you're working on this Christmas holiday. I ain't working, barely just studying and getting by. Avery says, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's, sir. Thank you. Anyway, let's get to the great state of Louisiana. What's happening here? Louisiana health officials shifting away from policy of promoting COVID flu vaccinations. This was written by Sophie Kasakov, published on December 22nd, 2024. Now, I'm not surprised about this. Louisiana is hella red. Louisiana is hella conservative, but generally, I would like to think that my people, where we come from, generally thought the COVID vaccine was okay. Now, growing up in Louisiana, of course, I knew a lot of crazy right-wing conservative Republican type people, right? But generally, we were taught to follow the health officials and stuff like that. So I'm very surprised, low-key, kind of to see this, even though I shouldn't be. When we have people like this in charge, running our state, the good old boys. You get what I'm saying? And I just watched Rosewood last night, so I'm kind of pissed off at white people in general. But let's talk about this. So the people that you see right here in that picture I just showed, that's the Louisiana Surgeon General, Dr. Ralph Abraham. He speaks during a press conference on Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024, to discuss tuberculosis relative to a public health and illegal immigration. Okay, so Louisiana's just going full on MAGA. Who would have thought? Nelson Moreno says they love that raw milk. I know, right? Anyway, state health officials say that Louisiana residents should decide for themselves whether to get vaccinated, especially for COVID-19 and influenza. The flu vaccine is now up for debate, guys. The flu vaccine is now up for debate. Breaking with broad vaccination campaigns at the agency in recent years and drawing rebukes from New Orleans officials and health experts. At this point, New Orleans just needs to secede from Louisiana. Let Louisiana just keep Baton Rouge, Lafayette, Shreveport, Monroe. Let them keep those cities. New Orleans needs to become its own state. Let's call that New Orleania. I would move back there in a heartbeat. New Orleania, where white women show their titties for beads and everybody's walking around with hands. That's what we need. New Orleania. We don't need Louisiana and New Orleans together in the same state. Okay, citing concerns about the efficacy and safety of vaccines, state officials will instead encourage residents to consult their doctor about vaccination. Louisiana Department of Health spokesperson Emma Hurrock said in a statement, in general, the department is shifting away from one-size-fits-all paternalistic guidance to a more informative approach aimed at enabling individuals in consultation with their doctor to make better decisions for themselves, the statement said. Anyway, go into the comments. Nelson Moreno says they love that raw milk. I've never tried raw milk. I definitely can't try it being a lactose intolerant person. Avery says, Rosewood, great movie. Acty and I will be reviewing that movie either later today or tomorrow. Not sure. Continuing. So the department is also reevaluating its priorities. The statement shifting its focus from vaccination to reducing overdose deaths, maternal mortality, and the burden of chronic disease. The shift in policy, which was initially reported by New Orleans public radio station WWNO, comes as politicians nationally have increasingly shared misinformation about vaccines that public health researchers say is inaccurate, and as prominent anti-vaccine activist Robert Kennedy Jr. appears poised to take over as health secretary under President-elect Donald Trump. Louisiana currently has the highest rate of flu in the country, and RSV is soaring too. New Orleans officials and health advocates pushed back on the change after it was revealed by the radio station's report Friday, warning of an uptick in disease and damage to already weak trust in public health institutions. New Orleans Council President Helena Moreno, who is a baddie, by the way, bad Mexican lady, runs New Orleans, by the way. Fire. Helena Moreno, holla at your boy. Give me a hola. I'm joking. New Orleans Council President Helena Moreno called the move incredibly concerning and irresponsible and said that city officials would need to ramp up the city's programs to promote and expand vaccine access. In response to a request for comment, a spokesperson for Mayor LaToya Cantrell referred to a statement posted on social media Friday by New Orleans Health Department Director Dr. Jennifer Avegno. Avegno did not explicitly acknowledge the state's policy change, but wrote that the local department is committed to promoting vaccines to protect the public's health. Nelson Moreno says, Moreno. She a baddie, man. She a baddie, in my opinion. Y'all look her up. What's her name? Helena Moreno, New Orleans. Look her up. Anyway, in an interview, Avegno said that the state health department has offered noticeably less information and opportunities for vaccination this year than in previous years. She said her department has attempted to ramp up promotion on its social media channels to help fill the gap locally. It's no surprise that Louisiana has led the country in flu incidents for the last few weeks, Avegno said. When you deprioritize telling people how, where, when to get vaccinated, more people are going to spread the flu. We're seeing the direct result. Break from public health standards. According to reporting by WWNO, Louisiana Health Department employees were informed of the new policy in meetings October and November, which they said would be implemented quietly and would not be put in writing. WWNO spoke with 4 employees at the Louisiana Department of Health on the condition of anonymity because of fear of retaliation, the report said. The Louisiana Department of Health definitely has people in it who smoke. I know for a fact. I don't even have to go to know. I don't even have to look that up. I know the Louisiana Department of Health has a smoking section inside the building. I know for a fact. Continuing here. Staffers were reportedly given a list of new forbidden activities. They could no longer send out press releases, give interviews, hold vaccine events, give presentations, or create social media posts encouraging the public to get the vaccines, according to New Orleans Public Radio, citing interviews with employees who spoke on the condition of anonymity. Employees were also told not to put up signs at the department's clinics about the availability of vaccines for COVID, flu, or Mpox, according to the report. I want to ask the people here, anybody who's in the chat right now, is there a problem with taking vaccines? Let me know. Do you not take vaccines? Do you think vaccines will give your children's third eyes or autism or something like that? I want to know. When did this become normal? When did this become normal to say, you know what, that vaccine, I'd rather smoke a cigarette and drink a 6-pack than take a vaccine? There's people walking around with radioactive cell phones in their pockets. People that regularly imbibe in their lungs, like polluted air in the atmosphere. And they want to look at a vaccine and say, nope, not for me. That's Louisiana for you. Gotta love the great state of Louisiana, baby. Anyway, Herrock did not respond to a request for comment confirming the details of how the new approach is being implemented, whether it would be made public or whether it applied to Mpox vaccinations. Herrock said it would not apply to childhood immunizations. Avery says, I haven't taken vaccines or flu shots since COVID, but I'm a hypocrite because I use AirPods. Yeah, man, that's the thing, man. So much toxic shit around us, man. We got microplastics floating in our testicles. We got all sorts of shit that we put in our bodies. People want to down a large Domino's garlic crusted pizza and then say the vaccine is like a problem, man. Nelson Moreno says, you can't get jobs if you don't get vaccinated here in Portugal. Very interesting. Shout out to Portugal, where drugs are legal and the women are loose. It is unclear when exactly the department began the policy shift, but the influenza page on its website appears not to have been updated in over a year, with the last information about vaccination clinics posted in October 2023. The statement also said that Louisiana Surgeon General Dr. Ralph Abraham has expressed personal concerns about the efficacy and safety of the COVID vaccine, and the department's stance is that immunization of any vaccine, along with practices like mask wearing and social distancing, are an individual individual's personal choice. The statement stated that the flu vaccine can lessen the severity of the illness and thus has a role in combating the effects of viral respiratory illnesses such as the flu, but said that the vaccine does not prevent one from getting the influenza virus. This is contrary to information from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which says that vaccines reduce the risk of contracting the virus. So in Louisiana, we just sort of make up our own alternative facts. In Louisiana, we say, vaccines don't really help you from the flu. And that's why I can confidently say as a Louisianian, Lil Wayne is the greatest rapper of all time. The Hot Boys were more influential than Run DMC. Juvenile is a better rapper than Biggie Smalls. Because in Louisiana, we just make up our own alternative facts. Kevin Gates is more lyrical than who? Nas. Yeah, Kevin Gates is more lyrical than Nasty Nas. Because in Louisiana, we just make up our own facts. We make up our own facts, baby. Abraham, a practicing family doctor and former congressman, was appointed Secretary of the State Health Department of Governor Jeff Landry in January. In June, Landry named him State Surgeon General, a new role created under a restructuring of the Health Department. The Surgeon General is the Health Department's chief medical officer and leader on disease prevention. Avery says, here we go, LOL. He a fan, he a fan, he a fan. Listen, man, Lil Wayne got bars like, I'm sick like C.Y. Phyllis, self-made G, and you bitches know the business. Relying on rapping in the kitchen, I'm a chemist. Come on, man. Lil Wayne got more bars than Jay-Z. That's a fact. And I can say that because in Louisiana, we make up our own facts. We make up our own facts. Lil Wayne is the dopest rapper to ever pick up the microphone. And I can say that confidently, knowing that nobody can rebut me. Give me some other bars from another MC, sick as, my leather ain't soft. Okay, my leather's so soft, but bitch, that mean I ain't hard. Bitch said, Weezy make it rain. I said, bitch, I ain't God, but I am God's son. But I ain't Nas, because he got a positive aim, and I aim nines. Man, Lil Weezy got to start at even I can't find. Some shit just be so hard, I be like, that line ain't mine. And if that is under a gram, then that line ain't mine. And if you bitches talking war, well, bitches, combat time. Hey, I take 3 L's to the head. Love, live, life, then I'm dead. Come on now. Ain't nobody spitting better than Lil Wayne. Greatest of all time. Anyway, Nelson Moreno says, she sucked the brown out my pen. Was bars. Did Lil Wayne say that? That's a wild bar. Anyway, in remarks during a committee meeting of the House Select Committee on Homeland Security in September, Abraham said that had he led the state's public health response to the COVID-19 pandemic, he would have done just about everything differently. Nearly every intervention attempted by government has been ineffective, counterproductive, and antithetical to the core principles of a free society, he said. Mask mandates, lockdowns, forced closures of churches, schools, and businesses, coerced vaccinations, and suppression of or intimidation of those who resisted are just a few examples of policies endorsed by the previous administration, which I opposed then and still oppose now. All right. Ka, Prez. Nelson Moreno listens to Ka. That's crazy. Rest in peace, Ka. All right. Let's finish up this article here because we're cutting short on time. I'm only going to be on live for about 1 hour. So we just basically read about what, Louisiana is doing. Basically telling people, hey, the vaccine is your choice, buddy. Now, listen now, the government don't know what it's doing about your health. Now, we have doctors up in D.C. who like to talk down on us little folk, but here in Louisiana, we make our own law. That's right, boss. That's right. So what we telling y'all right now is this. If you take the vaccine, your child might end up retarded. Your child might go retarded. Now, you don't want that now. That's right, boss. Okay, now y'all have a good on Christian day. That's Louisiana for you. Anyway, let's continue on in the story here. Y'all remember this lady? Y'all remember this 90s fine woman? Y'all remember this 90s fine dime piece that fell out of a Destiny's Child video in the background? Y'all remember her? Yeah, we could have had that. We could have had that. Anyway, this is the article here from the New York Times that I want to read. Will the U.S. ever be ready for a female president? Democrats wanted to end the electability debate after Vice President Kamala Harris's defeat. A conversation has frustrated and foiled 2 generations of female candidates rages on. So, will America ever have a female president? I think it's very likely. But in my lifetime, maybe towards the end of my lifetime. Maybe towards the end of my lifetime. This was written by Lisa Lehrer and Jess Bidgood. Lisa Lehrer and Jess Bidgood have covered the campaign of all 10 Democratic and Republican women who have run for president since 2008. So let's go here. Former President Bill Clinton and Senator Lindsey Graham, a Republican from South Carolina, don't agree on much. Yet recently, the ideological adversaries found some common ground on a political question that has quietly endured over nearly 2 decades. Yes, a woman can win the White House, they agree, but she's probably going to be conservative. That just hits the soul right there. That means we got to have the Margaret Thatcher of America. Ugh. Anyway, Nelson Moreno says she used to tease me with her lingerie. First female Prez will be a conservative. That's unfortunate, man. That's really unfortunate that the first female president has to basically be an upholder of like male patriarchy and American racism and empire. Why does it have to be that way? Why? So anyway, are there women out there, governors, Republican, Democrat, that can be the next president of the United States? Absolutely, Mr. Graham said in an interview on Capitol Hill this month. If you have a Republican female nominee, they would have a good shot of being the first woman president. Because I'm just imagining who they're going to put up. They're going to put up like Tulsi Gabbard or something like that. They're going to put up like just gross women. You know what I mean? Like the first woman that was like a vice president. Who was it? Sarah Palin. Just gross. Just nasty broads. Anyway, a few days earlier and several hundred miles north, Mr. Clinton, whose wife tried and failed twice to win the White House, made a similar argument. Ideologically, the people who are most likely to be against women are most likely to be conservative. So when people agree with you, it's easier to be for them, he said in an appearance at the Deal Book Summit hosted by the New York Times. But I think women can be elected president. I do. Their similar predictions are the latest in a conversation that has frustrated and foiled 2 generations of female candidates. For Democrats still scarred by Hillary Clinton's loss to Donald J. Trump in 2016, Vice President Kamala Harris' defeat at the hands of the same man in November has only deepened anxieties over gender bias and prompted a fresh round of debate over the electability of women to the nation's highest office. While few will say so aloud, some Democrats are already quietly hoping their party doesn't nominate a woman in 2028. Elizabeth Warren, 2028. Elizabeth Warren, 2028. Elizabeth Warren, put the little Navajo girl. Put the little Navajo hoe up in that thing. Put the little Navajo hoe up in that thing and we gonna run this bitch. You feel me? Avery says he loves Tulsi. Yeah, I would smash Tulsi. I would smash Tulsi, but she's gross. She's gross. Nelson Moreno says AOC kind of fine. She might get the presidency if she sucks the deep state. AOC is a baddie. We love AOC on this channel. No slander of AOC. AOC is wifey to us all. She is comrade AOC. We love AOC here. But Elizabeth Warren, 2028, she gonna run that bitch. You feel me? Anyway. So, while few will say so aloud, some Democrats are already quietly hoping their party doesn't nominate a woman in 2028, fearing she could not overcome an enduring hold of sexism on the American electorate. Many others anticipate another, perhaps even more aggressive, round of questions and doubts about female presidential candidates that have plagued the party for the better part of 2 decades. Honestly, if Kamala runs again, she might have a good chance of winning. I think if she, sits in the California governorship for like a few months or a few years, then runs for president, you get what I'm saying? I think she could win again because Americans are stupid. We don't even know who our vice president is until they start running for president or they do something outlandish. You get what I'm saying? The only famous, there was only a few famous vice presidents. People were Googling who is the vice president. People were Googling, did Joe Biden drop out on the night of the election? You get what I'm saying? Now, some of that might be international people on Google, but still, I wouldn't put that past a good chunk of that being the American electorate. Anyway, Nelson Moreno says young Hillary Clinton over Tulsi. Young Hillary Clinton is a Pog masterpiece. Young Hillary Clinton is prime Pog material. Young Hillary Clinton was the definition of a prime Pog, all right? Anyway, people feel pretty stung by what happened, said Liz Schuler, the first woman elected to lead the AFL-CIO, the largest federation of unions in the country, who supported Ms. Harris and believes she made no significant missteps in the race. She totally overperformed and yet fell short. So does it feel like that sucker punch of wow, even when you do everything right, the glass ceiling is still elusive? Look at these sad little ladies. Look at these sad little zillennials out here crying over Kamala not making it. Look at these sad, sad white women. Don't we want to make our sad white sisters happy? Don't we want to make our sad white sisters happy? Anyway, for decades, advocates for female political leaders argued that if more women ran for president, their presence in American politics would become normalized and one would eventually win the White House. Since Mrs. Clinton's first attempt to break what she called the highest, hardest glass ceiling in 2008, 9 other women have vied for a major party's nomination. Those candidates have been conservative and liberal, racially diverse, and from big cities, small towns, and across the country. Some campaigned on an economic message, others focused on social issues. Only two, Mrs. Clinton and Ms. Harris, both Democrats, captured their party's nomination. Another reason why I think, you know what? I'm going to put this out here right now. The only woman that could win the presidency from the conservative side has to be a full-on white woman. Because Tulsi's not white. The white supremacists are not going to rock with Tulsi because she is not white. She's off-white. And who is that other Indian woman? The Punjabi pussy woman? I forgot her name. But she was the governor of like South Carolina or something like that. The racist conservatives in the Republican Party tent are not going to vote for like some off-white or like Indian or black woman. They wouldn't vote for Candace Owens. You get what I'm saying? They rock with any of that. It needs to be a full-on head, like white woman. Anyway, so Nelson Moreno says, Musk is the real vice president. Do Kamala female voters like black men? I think so. I would imagine so. So let's go here. As they process the second defeat of a female nominee, Democrats are divided over the question of how much Ms. Harris's gender actually contributed to her loss, making it hard to divine what exactly that could mean for their party in 2028. 2 weeks before Election Day, Ms. Harris openly dismissed concerns that sexism could hurt her chances, saying in an interview with NBC News that the country was absolutely ready to elect a female president. She rarely mentioned her gender or race during her brief campaign, a choice that reflected both her personal approach to barrier-breaking opportunities and the long-running Democratic anxieties about female nominees. Now, after her defeat, few Democrats dispute that sexism was a factor in a race against a man who had been found liable for sexual abuse, a verdict Mr. Trump called a disgrace and has long made hypermasculinity a part of his political brand. I do not think that this race swung solely on her being a woman or a woman of color, but I think that you cannot look at a woman and a woman of color and not think that didn't have an impact on this race. Jen O'Malley Dillon, Ms. Harris's campaign chair, told a group of strategists, journalists, and academics gathered for a campaign post-mortem at Harvard this month. We are fooling ourselves if we don't think that there is an element of her being a woman of color that was harder for people to see as comfortably, perhaps. I'm just saying, man, Mamala got to run again. Mamala has to run again. Because Biden ran multiple times. Biden been running for president since the 80s, and he didn't make it in until 2020. This is a long game. The American public is focused on like Kim Kardashian's ass, Station 5, GTA 5. You get what I'm saying? Like the American public is focused on like SZA, breaking up with like Punch. The American public is like focused on like, whatever Jelly Roll is doing in country music. You get what I'm saying? The American public isn't tuned into politics, low key. She got to run again. Biden has to keep on running. Biden had to keep on running. Mamala should keep on running. You feel me? You feel me, Nelson Moreno? She should run again. You feel me? Anyway, let's continue here. Yet to chalk Miss Harris's loss up to sexism alone. Yet to chalk Miss Harris's loss up to sexism alone and to the idea that women are held to a higher standard when seeking the White House could also be a way of minimizing campaign missteps. Kamala Harris made a very bad decision in her choice of vice president, so that was her first big decision to make. And in my judgment, she did not choose well. Senator Susan Collins, Republican of Maine, said of the selection of Governor Walz of Minnesota, a relatively untested national figure, as her running mate. Behind Ms. Harris and Mrs. Clinton's loss, she added there were circumstances in the campaign that were unrelated to gender. I like Tim Walz. I thought Tim Walz was hard. I thought partially they picked Tim Walz because he looks like Bernie Sanders, partially. And also he just has like a boisterous personality. I think Tim Walz is cool and he could run and win. I think so. Anyway, Senator Tammy Baldwin, Democrat of Wisconsin, who won a tough re-election race against a male candidate in November, said she saw more traditional political factors playing a larger role in Ms. Harris's defeat, noting that she heard very little focus on her gender or the barrier-breaking potential of her candidacy. This was a change election. If people are expressing that they're concerned about the direction of the country, they're not going to vote for the incumbent party, she said. It has much more to do with that than I think the fact that Kamala Harris is a black woman. I added the black woman part, but you get what I'm saying, man. So continuing here, the results indicate that, yet again, voters were not particularly motivated by a desire for greater female representation. Despite the liberal hope that women would flock to her candidacy over issues like abortion rights, Ms. Harris won the lowest level of support from female voters of any Democratic nominee since 2004. Damn. According to an analysis by the Center for American Women and Politics at Rutgers University. A majority of white women continue to support Mr. Trump. A majority of white women continue to support Mr. Trump, a result that is consistent with their support for the Republican nominee in every race since 2004. Yet Ms. Harris also made a few, if any, inroads among key blocks of female voters. A smaller percent of Latino and young women backed Ms. Harris than backed any other Democratic nominee since Barack Obama first ran in 2008. Voters were more worried about the issues like the economy or immigration and less concerned with the vice president's gender and race, said Amanda Hunter, the executive director of the Barbara Lee Family Foundation, which promotes women in politics. She added, this was not the same glass ceiling candidacy that we saw in 2016. I guess so, man. I guess so. Anyway, I'll go into the comments here. Thomas Anderson says, why didn't she separate herself from Amnesia Joe? Even the women don't like her. I agree with you. One of the biggest mistakes she made, Thomas Anderson, is when, they asked her, what would you do differently than Joe Biden? And Mamala said, I can't really think of anything. There isn't much that would be different. That was a major, major, major misstep. Because listen, man, I know she's loyal to Biden, you know what I mean? And in general, one of my icks with Kamala is that she seems to be really, how can I say this, confidential. Like she likes to make decisions by consensus rather than having that, big dick energy that Americans like in our leaders. Let's keep it absolutely a buck. I don't know if she's also under 6 foot, because I think every president has been at least over 6 foot tall. And for some reason, we just want tall people in charge that have dick energy and the ability to act unilaterally. And this is the thing. She was too loyal to Biden. Maybe she also didn't get the green light to say, yeah, just go ahead and trash what my administration has done. Biden told her, don't you go out there, woman, and disrespect my name. You feel me? So, yeah, that was one of the major, major issues. She did not run a flawless campaign. She did not run a great, flawless campaign. This is a lie. This is a lie. But she also had to overcome a lot. A lot of Americans are hella dumb, and they don't watch the news, don't read the news. They don't know what's going on. They didn't even know she was vice president. You get what I'm saying? And also on top of that, Trump is running misinformation. There was a lot of factors that were happening here. Thomas Anderson says, Dems pick the most unlikable women ever. Yes, we only like women when they basically are our mouthpieces for our male patriarchy, Wade Harris. We like women that tell women to get back into the kitchen. We like women that tell women you should die because you can't get an abortion. We like women that tell women that your lives are less than ours as men and you can't earn as much money as us as men. We like women that basically have the same whip in our hands that we have over our wives, our girlfriends, our sisters, our mothers. We like women that hit women, beat women, and want to keep women down. I like that too. We all like that as men. It's a bunch of guys in the room, right? Don't we all hate women? Don't we all hate women? Anyway, continue here. But Avery said women need to get back into the kitchen. Anyway, man. All right. Thomas Anderson said, I want to see AOC's fine ass. Listen, man, AOC is bae. AOC is bae. She could win this. She could win this because I be on 4chan, and the right-wing white boys, incels who be on there, who say nothing but the worst racist shit about all sorts of people, they love AOC. They love AOC. They like that big booty Latina. They like that big, fiery booty Latina. And we love her too on this side. Ain't that right, comrades? Ain't that right? Don't we love AOC's big fine ass? Anyway, continuing. Still, other members of the Senate, where women make up a quarter of the body, said they believed Ms. Harris's gender more significantly affected her support. Some people think that a woman can't run a country, and so there are those kinds of views that we need to address among them, said Senator Mazie Hirono, Democrat of Hawaii and a close ally of Ms. Harris. There are a lot of cultural issues involved in electing a woman. Okay, so we're already 30 minutes in, and we basically get the idea that, the debate about whether a woman can win the election is still like up for debate. I'm just saying, this woman was 90s fine. I just wanted to see a bunch of AKAs stepping on the White House lawn. I just wanted to see a bunch of big, beautiful black women all up in the White House doing the ski-wee. I just wanted to see all that. I just wanted to see 90s fine in the White House. It didn't happen. C'est la vie. Anyway. Zark81 says she lost bad. She didn't really lose that bad, just to keep it frank. Trump only won 49.8% of the popular vote. He barely eked by getting the popular vote. You get what I'm saying? And also the Electoral College. And we definitely need to abolish the Electoral College so we don't get bullshit like this. Trump's wish to control Greenland and Panama Canal. Not a joke this time. In recent days, the president-elect has called for asserting U.S. control over the Panama Canal and Greenland, showing that his America First philosophy has an expansionist dimension. Haven't I told y'all, man, America is like the most wicked, evil nation in the world, and it's even worse when it's helmed and controlled by white supremacists and blatant racists and basically imperialists. Anyway, Thomas Anderson says, do you think Biden had some play with her? I don't think so, man. I think Doug is a big dude. Doug comes across like a man throw hands. So I think he was protecting his baby. He was protecting his sugar sweet honey bun. Anyway, David E. Sanger and Lisa Friedman wrote this article, which was published on December 23rd, 2024. Over the past 2 days, President-elect Donald J. Trump has made clear that he has designs for American territorial expansion, declaring that the United States has both security concerns and commercial interests that can best be addressed by bringing the Panama Canal and Greenland under American control or outright ownership. Mr. Trump's tone has had none of the trolling jocularity that surrounded his repeated suggestions in recent weeks that Canada should become America's 51st state, including his social media reference to the country's beleaguered prime minister as Governor Justin Trudeau. I gotta say this, as an American, we don't want Canada. We don't want Canada. They not like us. They not like us. They not like us. They're too nice. All they eat is Tim Hortons. They watch hockey. They have a weird accent where they say oot and a woot. No, we don't want none of that. Keep Canada. They're not like us. We don't want Canada. We don't want more Drakes. We definitely don't need a bunch of, you know what, I'm not going to say it, but you know what I mean? We don't need a bunch of them in the country. We don't need a bunch of them. And, that's the biggest surprise. The white folks who support Trump are going to tell him to invade Canada, and then they're going to be surprised when more Kamala Harrises pop up. That's all I'm going to say about that. The demographics of Canada, if you read in between the lines. Avery says, did you hear about the Turkey and Israel conflict? Very interesting, since Turkey is a part of NATO. I didn't hear about that. But I talk about this with Acti all the time. Turkey being a part of NATO is like saying, like in the girl group, the fat girl is really your best friend. In a clique full of pretty girls, we have the fat girl there, and she's really the best friend. Now she ain't. You get what I'm saying? Turkey is the fat girl in the pretty girl group of NATO, if that makes sense. All right. Zach81 says, I love your people, but hate your country. I do too, Zark81. I love American people. I just hate America. You feel me? I agree with that 1,000,000%. Thomas Anderson says, Panama is giving it to China. We need to take it for national prosperity. No. Listen, man, if America doesn't want to invest in Latin America, which is supposed to be our backyard, if all we do in Latin America is support dictators, like we put up dictators in Panama with Noriega, if all we do is kill the democratically elected leaders in Latin America, like we did with the Allende in Chile, how are we going to be mad that the Latin American countries want to go to other places to try to get funding and build infrastructure and basically try to modernize? What are you saying? Like, because we decided to fuck with Latin America and basically murder their people, snort up a bunch of cocaine, and destabilize the region, now they're wrong for trying to, go China, Russia, any other place to get money to build up their nation. You get what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense. Zark81 says thoughts on India and USA relations. We love India on this channel. We got nothing but love for India on this channel. But if you Indians are anti-black, we gonna clap back. All right. So yeah. Avery says Canada has weird people. Yes, they do. Avery says I love the country and hate the people. Godspeed. Anyway, Mr. Trump's tone has had none of the trolling jocularity that surrounded his repeated suggestions in recent weeks that Canada should become America's 51st state, including his social media reference to the country's legal prime minister as Governor Trudeau. Instead, while naming a few ambassadors to Denmark, which controls Greenland's foreign and defense affairs, Mr. Trump made clear on Sunday that his first-term offer to buy the landmass could, in the coming term, become a deal the Danes could refuse. He appears to covet Greenland, both for its strategic location at a time when the melting of Arctic ice is opening new commercial and naval competition, and for its reserves of rare earth minerals needed for advanced technology. Also, Americans, we don't want Greenland either. We don't want Greenland. We don't want Greenland. We don't want Antarctica. We don't want none of that. We got enough of what we had. We got big booty Latinas in Puerto Rico, and we got snow bunnies in Alaska. We don't need Greenland. We don't need Canada. They not like us. For purposes of national security and freedom throughout the world, Mr. Trump wrote on social media, the United States of America feels that the ownership and control of Greenland is an absolute necessity. On Saturday evening, he had accused Panama of price gouging American ships traversing the canal and suggested that unless that changed, he would abandon the Jimmy Carter-era treaty that returned all control of the canal zone to Panama. The fees being charged by Panama are ridiculous, he wrote, just ahead of an increase in the charges scheduled for January 1st. This complete ripoff of our country will immediately stop. He went on to express worry that the canal could fall into the wrong hands, an apparent reference to China, the second largest user of the canal. A Hong Kong-based firm controls 2 ports near the canal, but China has no control over the canal itself. Not surprisingly, the government of Greenland immediately rejected Mr. Trump's demands, as it did in 2019, when he first floated the idea. Greenland is ours, Prime Minister Mute B. Egede said in a statement. We are not for sale and never will be for sale. We must not lose our long struggle for freedom. Yeah, we don't want Greenland, and I hope Greenland gets free, because if I know right, Greenland is controlled by the Dutch. So, yeah, I think they want their own autonomy, and just to be controlled by another empire is not okay. Zark81 says, is the Indian guy Vivek a good candidate? Did you graduate in political science? That's a good question. So, I did not graduate in political science. My mom has a master's in political science. So growing up in my house, it was politics all the time. Plus, I like to read, and I'm actually going to university now for sociology. Zark81 says, Vivek, yes. Vivek is a horrible candidate. Vivek is a horrible candidate because he's palling around with murderers. Let's keep it real, man. Vivek is a brown white supremacist. Vivek is a brown white supremacist. How are you palling around with a man that murdered a innocent homeless man? This is Vivek Ramaswamy talking about our family contributed to this man's legal defense fund last year when he was blah, 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 blah. Vivek pals around with anti-black murderers. Fuck him, fuck his life, fuck his mama, and definitely fuck that little kid of his. You get what I'm saying? Vivek is a horrible person. Continuing here. So, the Danish prime minister, the Danes, so it's controlled by Denmark, not the Netherlands, Greenland is controlled by Denmark, not the Netherlands. So the Danish prime minister's office was more circumspect, writing in a statement that the government was looking forward to working with the new administration and offering no further comment on Mr. Trump's remarks. After Mr. Trump brought up the Panama Canal again in a speech on Sunday, Panama's president, Jose Raul Molino, said in a video that every square meter of the Panama Canal and its adjacent zones is part of Panama, and it will continue to be, he added. Our country's sovereignty and independence are not negotiable. But the president-elect's statements and the not-so-subtle threats behind them were another reminder that his version of America First is not an isolationist creed. Zark81 said, is Russia no longer a bully? Russia is pretty bad as well for trying to invade Ukraine, in my opinion. So come here. His aggressive interpretation of the phrase evokes the expansionism or colonialism of President Theodore Roosevelt, who cemented control of the Philippines after the Spanish-American War. And it reflects the instincts of a real estate developer who suddenly has the power of the world's largest military to back up its negotiating strategy. Mr. Trump has often suggested that he does not always see the sovereignty of other nations' borders as sacrosanct. When Russia invaded Ukraine, Mr. Trump's first response was not a condemnation of the blatant land grab, but rather the observation that President Vladimir Putin's move was an act of genius. Even now, as Mr. Trump seeks a deal to end the war in Ukraine, he has never said that the country's borders must be restored, a key demand of the United States and NATO. He has only promised a deal to end the fighting. In the cases of Greenland and Panama, both commercial and national security interests are at play. Mr. Trump's desire for Greenland was made explicit in the first term when Medics Air put the idea in his head. In the Trump White House in 2019, the National Security Council was suddenly delving into the details of how the United States will pull off a land acquisition of that size. Mr. Trump kept pressing the point with Denmark, which consistently rebuffed him. Mr. Trump was not the first president to make the case. Harry S. Truman wanted to buy Greenland after World War II as Cold War strategy for boxing out Soviet forces. Mr. Trump can make a parallel argument, especially as Russia, China, and the United States jockey for control of Arctic routes for commercial shipping and naval assets. What was the point of buying Alaska if we want Greenland too? I mean, Alaska basically serves the same purpose as having Greenland. There's no reason to have two Arctic possessions up north. Okay? Arctic experts did not dismiss Mr. Trump's Greenland bid as a joke. Not that many people are laughing about it now, said Mark Jacobsen, an associate professor at the Royal Danish Defense College in Denmark, who focuses on Arctic security. Mr. Jacobsen noted that the reaction in Denmark to Mr. Trump's latest bid had been one of fury. One Danish politician called it an unusually strange way to be an ally. But he said Greenlanders who have long sought independence may seek to use Mr. Trump's interest as an opportunity to further strengthen economic ties with the United States. So, Zark81 says, why governments don't give a shit about native Indians' rights? That's a very good point, too. Like, there are native people living in Greenland, native people living in Canada, and here is Trump callously saying, yeah, we want that. We want what you have. Imperialism. Very good point, Zark81. Since 2009, Greenland has had the right to declare its independence, but the vast territory of about 56,000 people is still heavily dependent on Denmark and has never chosen to pursue that path. Mr. Trump's interest would give Greenland an opening for more U.S. investments, including in tourism or rare earth mining, he said. Only 56,000 people live in Greenland, which is interesting. Okay, was it crazy when the U.S. acquired Alaska? Was it crazy when the U.S. built the Panama Canal? Asked Sherry Goodman, a former Pentagon official and a senior fellow with the Wilson Center Polar Institute, a Washington-based tank. Ms. Goodman, whose book, Threat Multiplier, Climate, Military Leadership, and the Fight for Global Security, centers in part on the Arctic, said the United States did have a strong interest in ensuring that China, in particular, does not develop a strong presence in Greenland. Beijing's ambitions in the Arctic have grown, and in 2018 it laid out plans to build infrastructure and develop shipping lanes opened by climate change. Ms. Goodman said the United States should continue to prevent China from gaining a foothold in the doors to North America, but said Greenlanders must decide their own fate. Why do we continue to act like China is us? Why does America continue to act like China is us? China doesn't have hundreds of military bases all over the world. China doesn't have nuclear subs under the ocean that at the press of a button could end life on Earth as we know it. China hasn't encouraged, in at least as much as America has, the upholding of, strongmen, authoritarian dictators that kill their own people. I'm not saying that China is perfect. I'm not trying to cape for China. I'm not putting on a red, Chinese flag over my back. But I'm just saying, why are we acting like China in Panama and China in Greenland is similar to us having bases near Taiwan? How is it similar? How are we even the same? You get what I'm saying? This constant paranoia that the American empire has, that anybody will threaten its hegemony, is going to lead us to destruction. It's going to lead to World War III. because America acts like everybody else is us, that they're as imperialistic and bloodthirsty as we are. All right, going to Zark 81, isn't a civil war going on in Haiti? It's not a civil war. Basically, the state has failed, the government has failed, and yeah. And Zark 81 says, as a Nigerian, I agree with you. I thought you were Indian. Zark 81, I thought you were Indian. Oh, God. So, anyway, continuing, we want to have all those territories proximate to our own mainland territory to protect us and also to prevent an adversary from using it to our strategic disadvantage, Ms. Goodman said. On the other hand, there is international law and international order and sovereignty, and Greenland is still a part of Denmark. When it comes to Panama, Mr. Trump may also hold a distant personal grudge. In 2018, Panamanian officers ousted the Trump Organization from the Trump International Hotel in Panama City after a protracted legal battle between the president-elect's family and the majority owner of the property. The Trump name subsequently came down. The company had held a contract to merge the property. David L. Goldwyn, who served at the State Department under President Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, noted that Greenland has tremendous undeveloped natural resources, including more than 43 so-called critical rare earth elements used to make electric vehicles, wind turbines, and other clean technology. Certainly, if Greenland chose to develop these resources, it would provide a significant alternative to China, although it is China's capacity to process those minerals which gives its current advantage, he said. But Mr. Goldwyn said that in addition to Denmark's sovereignty, Mr. Trump might find that Greenland's indigenous communities do not want mining and resource extraction as much as he does. It is highly unlikely resource extraction could be forced on an unwilling population, he said. A more fruitful path might be to collaborate with the Danish government and Greenland population on ways to safely and sustainably develop those resources. And that's the end of the article right here. Once again, it's just crazy, the timeline that we're living in, where we're seriously considering, taking back the Panama Canal and all sorts of crazy stuff like making Canada the 51st state or Greenland the 52nd. Absolutely crazy. Zark 81 says, could we see USA again invading Afghanistan? I wouldn't put it past Trump. Anything is possible, baby. It's 2024 going into 2025. We still alive, and crazy things are happening all around the world around us. Anyway, last article I'm going to read today is related to drugs, right? And I know a lot of people on my channel like to smoke weed. I know a lot of people on my channel, like to get high in various ways, you feel me? But I don't like to smoke weed. I've never been a big weed smoker. And this wasn't one of the reasons why I stopped or never really, started smoking weed. But it's something I thought about as I got older. Like, what's happening in Latin America and many other poor parts of the world that produce drugs? The people who are, trafficking the drugs, growing the drugs, processing these drugs, these aren't the El Chapos. These aren't the people that end up with, 3 Rolls Royces and mansions all over the country and stuff like that. It's the little people that get hurt. So I felt like, as I got older, I was glad that I never started smoking weed or using my money to support that habit, because I'm basically helping fund human trafficking, innocent people getting killed and stuff like that. Like when you smoke weed, especially in America, and if you're living in a state where it's illegal, you get what I'm saying? You're helping fund the cartels, which are doing horrific things to the people in Latin America, and also funneling or causing the mass trafficking of people into the country. So if you don't like illegal immigration, stop giving your money to the cartels that are basically destabilizing Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, et cetera, et cetera. And also at the same time, if you really do like smoking drugs, how about you actually campaign for full-on drug legalization? And I'm talking the legalization of everything. You get what I'm saying? But this is the last article I'm going to try to read through today. How Mexican cartels test fentanyl on vulnerable people and animals. A global crackdown on fentanyl has led to cartels to innovate production methods and test their risky formulas on people, as well as rabbits and chickens. Okay, so this is really bad. You get what I'm saying? Imagine being a Mexican and you live near one of these cartels and they're paying you to test the drugs and fentanyl. You're putting your life at risk. Absolutely crazy story. Panka says, so just legalize. We want legal weed. We want legal weed. But the crazy thing is there's a lot of people who are mad at illegal immigration. They don't like Mexicans, Guatemalans, Hondurans coming into America. They smoke weed, but then they go around and vote for the party that wants to make weed continues to be criminalized and on top of that, not legalize any other drugs and continue the status quo where the cartels make billions of dollars and continue to destabilize the region. Make it make sense. Anyway, this article was published on the New York Times on December 26, 2024. The cartel operatives came to the homeless encampment carrying syringes filled with their latest fentanyl formula. The offer was simple. According to two men living at the camp in northwest Mexico, up to $30 for anyone willing to inject themselves with the concoction. Think about that, man. You're a poor Mexican, somebody says for $30, and you're this desperate. $30, inject this fentanyl into you. Let's see if it's good. That's crazy. That's crazy. So one of the men, Pedro Lopez Camacho, said he volunteered repeatedly. At times, the operatives were visiting every day. They watched the drug take effect. Mr. Lopez Camacho said, snapping photos and filming his reaction. He survived, but he said he saw many others who did not. When it's really strong, it knocks you out or kills you, said Mr. Lopez Camacho of the drugs he and others were given. The people here died. This is how far Mexican cartels will go to dominate the fentanyl business. Global efforts to crack down on the synthetic opioid have made it harder for these criminal groups to find the chemical compounds they need to produce the drug. Original source China has restricted exports of the necessary raw ingredients, pushing the cartels to come up with new and extremely risky ways to maintain fentanyl production and potency. The experimentation, members of the cartels say, involves combining the drug with a wider range of additives, including animal sedatives and other dangerous anesthetics. To test the results, the criminals who make the fentanyl for the cartels, often called cooks, say they inject their experimental mixtures into human subjects as well as rabbits and chickens. But the humans might as well be objects, because how can you cook up a drug and then have the junkies come and you basically, and test it out on them? Where's your humanity? If the rabbits survive beyond 90 seconds, the drug is deemed too weak to be sold to Americans. That's crazy. Read that sentence, man. If the rabbits survive beyond 90 seconds, the drug is deemed too weak to be sold to Americans, according to 6 cooks and 2 U.S. embassy officials who monitor cartel activity. The American officials said that when Mexican law enforcement units have raided fentanyl labs, this is insane, man. This is horrible. This is horrible. This is like horror movie stuff, man. So they experiment in the style of Dr. Death, said Renato Sales, a former national security commissioner in Mexico. It's to see the potency of the substance. With this, they die. With this, they don't. And that's how we calibrate. Crazy, man. Poor little rabbits. Poor little rabbits tested and injected full of fentanyl. Anyway, to understand how criminal groups have adapted to crack down, the New York Times observed fentanyl being made in a lab as well as a safe house and spent months interviewing several people directly involved in the drug's production. They included 9 cooks, 3 chemistry students, 2 high-level operatives, and a recruiter working for the Sinaloa cartel, which the U.S. government blames for fueling the synthetic opioid epidemic. The people connected to the cartel spoke on the condition of anonymity for fear of retaliation. One cook said he recently started mixing fentanyl with an anesthetic often used in oral surgery. Another said the best additive he had found was a sedative for dogs and cats. Another cook demonstrated for Times reporters how to produce fentanyl in a cartel safe house in Sinaloa State in northwest Mexico. He said that if the batch was too weak, he added xylazine, an animal tranquilizer known on the streets as trank, a combination that American officials warn can be deadly. You inject this into a hen, and if it takes between a minute and a half to die, that means it came out really good, the cook said. If it doesn't die or takes too long to die, we'll add xylazine. Crazy, man. I believe this is one of the cooks right here, man. This is the man cooking up your fentanyl. This is the man cooking up your fentanyl. Definitely ain't made in America. Crazy. Crazy. A Sinaloa cook demonstrates for Times reporters how to synthesize fentanyl in a safe house in Culiacan in November. Crazy. Wow. Ciliacina. Wow. And this is a bag of xylazine that they're mixing in to make fentanyl. Crazy, man. That's crazy, bro. All right, continuing here. So the Cook's account aligned with data from the Mexican government showing a rise in the use of fentanyl mixed with xylazine and other substances, especially in cities near the U.S. border. The illicit market gets much more benefit from its substances by cutting them with different things such as xylazine, said Alexis Bojorge Estrada, Deputy Director of Mexico's Mental Health and Addiction Commission. You enhance it and therefore need less product, said Ms. Bojorge, referring to fentanyl, and you get more profit. U.S. drug researchers have also noticed a rise in what one called weirder and messier fentanyl. Having tested hundreds of samples in the United States, they found an increase in the variety of chemical compounds in fentanyl on the streets. It's just the wild west of experimentation, said Caleb Bonta Green, a research professor at the University of Washington School of Medicine, who helped coordinate the testing of more than 580 samples of drugs sold as fentanyl in Washington state this year. He called it absolute chaos. The experiments, the synthetic opioids that reach American streets often begin in cartel labs where precision is not always a priority, cooks say. They mix up vats of chemicals in rudimentary cook sites, exposing themselves to toxic substances that make some cooks hallucinate, retch, pass out, and even die. The cartels are actively recruiting university chemistry students to work as cooks. One student employed by the cartel revealed that to test their formulas, they got in drug users living on the street and injected them with the synthetic opioid. No one has ever died, the student said, but there have been bad batches. We've had people convulse or start foaming at the mouth, the student said. Mistakes by cooks were met with severe punishment, she added. Armed men locked the offenders in rooms with rats and snakes and left them there for long stretches with no food or water. The cooks and high-level operatives described the Sinaloa cartel as a decentralized organization, a collection of so many disparate cells that no single leader or faction had complete control over the group's fentanyl production. Some cooks said they wanted to create a standardized product that wouldn't kill users. Others said they didn't see the lethality of their product as a problem, but as a marketing tactic. Crazy. All right. In a U.S. federal indictment against the sons of the notorious drug lord Joaquin Loretta Guzman, known as El Chapo, who led a powerful section of the Sinaloa cartel, prosecutors said the group sent fentanyl to the United States even after an addict died while testing it in Mexico. Instead of scaring people off, cartel members, drug users, and experts say that many American users rush to buy a particularly deadly batch because they know it will get them high. One dies and 10 more addicts are born, said one high-level operative for the cartel. We don't worry about them. So the boss knew something was wrong when the hen stopped kneeling over. He said he'd been in the drug business since he was 12, when he started apprenticing at a heroin processing site. Now a soft-spoken 22-year-old, the boss said he taught himself how to produce illicit drugs by studying the older, more experienced men he worked with. Eventually, he started his own business with a friend. The boss said the business grew so fast that soon he was running 3 fentanyl labs. The drug has made him millions, he said. Every time he goes to one of his labs, he said he brings 4 or 5 rabbits from the local pet store. If the fentanyl his people make is potent enough, he has to inject and kill only one to be sure it is fit for sale. 2 pet store employees in Sinaloa, who spoke on the condition of anonymity for fear of retaliation from cartel members, confirmed that the cheapest rabbits are known to be purchased for drug testing. The boss's other test subjects are hens from a nearby ranch. Many fentanyl cooks test their products on chickens, according to 2 U.S. Embassy officials. So basically, here are the animals they're using to test out the fentanyl, man. Crazy. Absolutely, man, makes you want to be a vegan. Makes you want to be a vegan. Until recently, the boss said every time he injected the hens with fentanyl, they would either die, fall over, or stumble around as if they were drunk. All the locals knew not to eat the chickens or the eggs from the ranch. But recently, the animals weren't having a strong reaction to the drug, even though his process hadn't changed. His employees were logging the same hours at the same modest labs in the mountains, starting at 5 a.m. and sleeping there for days on end. They were working with the same equipment: laboratory shakers, trays, large containers, and a blender to mix up the final product. The boss said he eventually concluded that the culprit was a very diluted supply of the chemical ingredients from China. The result was a bunk product. It's too weak, he said. To fix the problem, the boss first tried combining fentanyl with ketamine, a short-acting anesthetic, but said other users didn't like the bitter taste that came with smoking the mix. It worked much better to add procaine, he said, a local anesthetic used to numb small areas during dental procedures. When asked whether he felt guilty about producing a drug that causes mass death, the boss said all he was doing was giving his customers what they wanted. If there weren't all those people in the United States looking to get high, we wouldn't sell anything, he said. It's their fault, not ours. We just take advantage of the situation. I mean, hey, man, if Americans want to get high, if Americans want to continue to support the cartels that are killing Latin American people, then hey, if they kneel over and die from it, karma. One cook we spoke with said he got into the fentanyl business a few years ago to pay off growing debts. At first, the former shop owner regularly got sick from the exposure to the fumes. He said the armed cartel members in charge had no patience for it. You may throw up at the beginning when you start, and you take a quick break and take some air, said the cook. But soon enough, one of them will scream at you to get back to work. A boss once shot him just because he didn't answer a question quickly enough, he said, pulling up his shirt to reveal a stomach scar. He is constantly experimenting with ways to make fentanyl stronger, tweaking his formula and testing it on his lab assistants, many of whom have become addicted in the process, he said. If the product comes out strong, he passes it on to his supervisors to try. Man, this is sad, man. Really sad story that we just read right here, man. Crazy stuff that they're doing down in Mexico. And this all could be prevented, man. Also preventable. Anyway, it's been about an hour since I've been on stream, so I'm about to cut this short. Y'all can read the full stories in the description of this video. I want to give a shout out to everybody who tuned in. Penka, Zark81, Avery, Nelson Moreno, Thomas Anderson, who else? Wade Harris. There was some other people up in here that I want to give a shout out to. Oh, that's it. Okay. And yeah, hope y'all enjoyed this live stream of reading the news. We're going to be back tomorrow to do it like we always do. This is Simon Hill, Keeps It Trill. Go subscribe to Backpack Bandits, my travel content. If you like seeing Acty and I all around the world, go watch the movie reviews we're posting on this channel. Go watch the previous reading the news. That was a great one we did yesterday. And this was an excellent one as well. I had a lot of fun. Y'all be easy out there, and peace.